it's your girl. For today, what I'm going to be covering is the Skinwalker Ranch. So let's get into it. Before we do, I just wanted to add a disclaimer. There is some pretty rough things that happen at this ranch. For those of you that don't know, there are harm to cattle and some animals. So if you're listening to this and there's little children around, I advise that you turn this off and wait until they're gone. Or if you're sensitive to stuff like that, I don't recommend listening to this episode. Skinwalker Ranch is approximately 512 acres of land southeast of Ballard, Utah. This place is crawling with weird, spooky things. The namesake is actually derives from Native American folklore. Another name for the ranch is actually UFO Alley because there is a high number of UFOs that are seen there. So local lore tells us about vengeful spirits brought on by the Navajo tribe in revenge to settlers coming in and taking their lands. As revenge, the Navajo shamans came up with what they call a skinwalker. So basically what a skinwalker is, it's a cryptid that takes many forms of different types of animals. One description of it is that it looks abnormally large to what those animals usually are. And they also have like this horrible scent of like rotting flesh. So that's how you know that you're being visited by a skinwalker, and they can do some pretty messed up things because they are vengeful spirits. Since then, the people that inhabit that area have noticed that there were some weird creatures out and about in that general vicinity. So as far as interest in the ranch goes, it wasn't actually documented to have any sort of interest until the 1950s. Joseph Jr. Hicks actually started to document people's accounts that were going on around that area. Later on, I learned that he actually went on to make a book with a man named Dr. Frank Salisbury, and the book was actually published in 1974, and then that's when it actually started booming, where people actually wanted to come and visit. Of course, the paranormal activity still continued. Even when the house was vacant, there would still be UFO sightings. 2 decades later, back in 1994, a couple under the names of Terry and Gwen Sherman actually bought the property, and they moved in with their son and daughter, both very young ages. They both allege that from the get-go, they started feeling weird activity in the house. First starting with the UFO sightings, and then came the poltergeist activity. They noticed things missing around the house. Things would actually start flying at them. They would feel people staring at them before they went to bed, see dark figures. They would feel things sit on their bed. And at one point, they were starting to get touched and scratched. At first, they thought that they were just, like, it was all in their head. They were just going crazy, besides the weird lights in the sky. But then the cows started missing. Now, I'm not a rancher, but I'm pretty sure when big, huge things that you paid for that are meant to, stay in your property go missing without a trace, you start to get a little freaked out. Then came the floating orbs in the sky. Now, I'm gonna get back to the missing cows. Don't worry. They also started seeing weird creatures. One night, Terry was out in where the cows were at because he heard some weird noises, and he saw this wolf-like creature. It was huge. It was abnormally large for a wolf. He saw that creature grab a calf all in his mouth with no assistance whatsoever. When he saw that he had a whole baby calf in his mouth, Terry started shooting at it around 7 to 10 times, each one hitting the wolf. The wolf just stood there and did not die. It didn't even bleed. It just growled and ran off with that calf, leaving that foul stench of rotting flesh. Because of this, the rancher does believe that was a skinwalker because it didn't look like a normal animal. Shortly after that, their family dogs were affected. Now, this is where the mutilation of animals comes in, so if you can't handle that, I would advise you to leave at this point. They heard their dogs barking and yelping outside because they kept them outside. And then suddenly silence. I don't think they went to go check on them. From what I read, they didn't discover them until the next day, and they looked to have been incinerated overnight, like burnt to a crisp. And they couldn't explain what had caused that. There was no fire set out. The only thing burnt was the dog. There was no footprints with like burn marks on there. There was nothing. No burnt wood, nothing. And then that's when they started to notice, full circle, that their cows started missing. Some completely gone forever. They would see the path that they were walking and then suddenly no footprints. Some of them were never to be found. No one knows where they went, but some did come back. One calf was found with a hole directly in the middle of his eyeball. Not only that, but there was also a perfectly round chunk missing out of part of its anus. Like if someone took a surgical tool, like if someone did a biopsy. Some of the calves had their tongues cut out with surgical precision. Some of them had their organs completely like out. Their organs were nowhere to be found. And I guess you can say, like, if an animal did it, yeah, it would eat the organs. It wouldn't eat all of them, though. It wouldn't have time. And they also wouldn't know how to take them out with surgical precision and cauterization. Some things were cauterized. Other calves were also found with no blood in or around their bodies. They were completely drained of blood. And then came the crop circles. Yep, straight up signs. I don't want to say aliens, but aliens. So some of the UFOs that they saw, because they saw a lot of them, they were different like shapes and sizes, which led them to believe that they weren't just being monitored by one species. They were being monitored by several. That's what they think. I'm just repeating what I researched. So some of the UFOs that they saw, some were small and boxy. They saw about like 3 of those. Some were also about 40 feet long. Those were pretty intimidating. And some were the size of several football fields. And they would always come out of like some weird orange orb of light in the sky. And they would hover there all night, never leaving the family alone. One of them actually shone like a red wave of light that they saw. Kind of like a beam, like when the stuff that people see before they get abducted, kind of like that, but never abducted anyone. Now, people, of course, always with these stories, people will have some skepticism, but they actually recorded some of these things. They actually recorded 2. So they caught 2 of them on videotape. So back to the crop circles. They said that they were about 8 foot wide and long, so they were 8-foot circles. And in the middle, it seemed like they were flattened completely. And it wasn't like in their actual crops, it was in their grass. One night while Gwen was driving home, she noticed that there was a light following her, and she was seeing it on her rearview mirror. The whole time freaked out, of course. Meanwhile, Terry was at home with their family dogs. I guess they got 2 new dogs. And he was out in the field with them doing God knows whatever ranchers do. He ended up hearing what he said sounded like male voices, several male voices surrounding him. He said they were speaking in an unknown language known to him, and it sounded like they were about 25 feet above him. He couldn't say if it was aliens or more of the poltergeist activity. All he knows is that he was so scared he went back into the house. His dogs went crazy, so they can hear it too. And when animals hear and feel things, That's how you know that shit has hit the fan. So the poor Shermans, after this all happened, they actually called the cops several times, but of course, when it comes to aliens, there's really nothing you can do. So they ended up selling the ranch to this eccentric billionaire that was actually pretty into the paranormal. His name was Robert Bigelow, and he was actually what he calls a paranormal expert. And he bought the property from them back in 1996. So truly, they did not stay long. He ended up setting up his own little laboratory there, hiring a group of scientists to come and see what exactly is going on at the Skinwalker Ranch. His team, what he called BASS, BAASS. Bass spent more than 2 decades there trying to figure out what exactly was going on. They didn't really record much evidence because everything that happened to happen while cameras were off, or the entities, cryptid, creature, alien things would come and turn them off. Some of the same scientists ended up buying some more cattle, and more mutilations happened. Of course, they were scientists, so they were able to do their own autopsies on these cows. All the markings, all the cauterization, the chemicals that they smelled were weird and, to say the least, were out of this world. One biochemist under the name of Colin Keller stated that on the night of March 12, 1997, the security guard on the base said that he saw something in a tree. It was a huge creature standing in this tree, so the security guard called all the scientists to come and see what it could be. The only way that he saw it was because he saw it fly onto that tree, and it made a huge noise. So these things aren't even trying to be quiet about anything at all. When the team got there, they saw that it was a humanoid looking figure just looking at them from that tree. The only way that they can see that it was there was if they shined their light on it, and the only thing that you can see was the figure of it and big yellow eyes staring right back at you. It stayed there motionless until the security guard ended up shooting at it with an automatic rifle, and then it flew away. Not before they were able to see the whole entire creature though. They said that it looked like a predatory bird with large claws. It was the size of a human. And he said that it looked very, very heavy. Bigelow's research team experienced nearly 100 events of the paranormal, but because things were unplugging cameras or causing things to malfunction, they couldn't really get any solid evidence to say, yes, this place is haunted or being attacked by weird creatures in the night or there are aliens there. The only evidence that they really only got was from the Sherman's video. Of course, they also had the evidence of the dog incinerations and the cow mutilations, but other than that, there was nothing else that could be recorded. So because of this, back in 2016, Robert Bigelow decided to sell the farm yet again, or the ranch, but they still continue to do research there to this day. One of the guards ended up experiencing some of the poltergeist activity that happens there. One night he was trying to sleep inside of the house in the ranch, and he was just having a whole bunch of trouble trying to sleep, and he couldn't really get to sleep, understandably, because he's on a haunted alien ranch. And he saw a figure, or what he thought was a figure, at the edge of his bed. He thought, you know what, maybe it's just me, it's really dark in here, I'm really tired, I'm just gonna get to bed. Until he felt something jump on his bed. Not only sit on the bed, it jumped on him. He got up real fast, turned on the lights, and saw that there was no one there. And he wasn't the only one that experienced weird things. Some people will hear things. They will discover one of the mutilated animals. They will see weird creatures, barely missing themselves getting picked up. There are weird things happening on that ranch that no one can explain, and some say that it's cursed because of the Skinwalker curse, also inviting other entities to come and inhabit that area. So this isn't the best look I can do right now, but it is what it is, especially with all the things that are going on right now. Leave your stories that you recommend down at the bottom, and I'll look into them. Other than that, I hope you have a good day.